Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about what I believe is the meanest zodiac sign. And yes, it does apply and pertain to the sun, moon, and ascendant. Anyway, first thing up is, well, I want to elaborate and expound what I mean by the meanest zodiac sign. The one that has the greatest propensity, well, general meanness meaning malice, just being generally unpleasant, unkind, hurtful. That is basically what I'm saying as far as the meanest zodiac sign goes. So anyway, we'll start out with Aries. Well, Aries, I think it'd certainly be a viable candidate for the meanest zodiac sign because they seem to be very acerbic. I've seen a lot of Aries being, just very unhappy. They are just, very disgruntled and really acrimonious. They're provoked very easily. It doesn't take much provocation to get them aroused, but they are not. They're not ones that are vengeful or vindictive or hold grudges. They're quick to forgive and forget. So, but Aries can certainly be a candidate for this because they are, really not pleasant very often. The thing what I wanted to get at, the next sign I want to talk about as far as Taurus goes. Well, as far as Taurus goes, well, they certainly, I have a hard time seeing them as the most as far as being the meanest of the zodiac signs because Taurus often has a very benign and benevolent expression. They're very, Taurus could be very calm and placid, and they often will go out of their way to avoid, confrontations, combative and contentious situations. They're very gentle and docile by nature, and don't get me wrong, Taurus has its bad qualities like all the other signs go. They could be very intransigent, very stubborn and obstinate. They're not always very easygoing, but the thing about it is they're generally not about meanness. So I would say no as far as Taurus goes. Now, going to Gemini. Well, Gemini is certainly a sign that's very effervescent, vivacious, and lively. They are very friendly and animated and amicable. They're not a sign, they could be somewhat high-strung and excitable, but they're generally not a sign I would see as really being very mean toward others. And the fact that Gemini is not one to hold malice or grudges on a person really for a protracted period. Gemini sometimes could be a little bit vengeful in terms of doing something right away to somebody that may have hurt them, but after that one action or whatever you want to call it, a lot of times they will wind up reconciling with that person. But I don't see, but overall, Gemini, again, they're a sign that will often, go at a good distance just to avoid a scene with somebody. They would rather walk away than get embroiled in some contentious situation. So, and when you get involved in a contentious situation, often meanness will be expressed. So, I'd say no to Gemini. Well, now, as far as the zodiac sign Cancer goes, well, Cancer, as I've stated in previous videos, many of you may know, of course, could be very fickle, moody, and temperamental. It's a sign which could have very good, strong extremes of being very, very happy, jocular one minute, and could be irritated the next. They do have their bouts of, spells of meanness. But I don't think it's that consistent enough with them where I would say that Cancer of all the zodiac signs would be considered the meanest. Sometimes they could brood a lot and lament about past hurts and sometimes this manifest in meanness that is expressed from them. But again, I would not put the zodiac sign Cancer as the meanest of the zodiac signs. Now going to Leo. Well, Leo is known, and has a lot of good, qualities to them. And being a fixed sign, though, they can be a little bit difficult, and they're known, notorious for their ferocious energy, but their ferocious temper. They can, Leo is like Aries. They could get angry pretty quickly, but they do often forgive and forget. I don't think Leo is quite as easily provoked as Aries, though, on average. But Leo can have a very fiery temperament, and sometimes they could become a little bit acerbic, but not as consistently as Aries. But when Leo explodes, it can be very volatile, and people don't want to be around Leo when they become ballistic. But they often have a side to them where they often express a very sunny disposition. So it's not a sign that I see as being overly mean, because they could be very magnanimous and generous as well. So I would say no to Leo as far as being the meanest zodiac sign. Now going toward Virgo. Well, Virgo, I'd have a hard time placing them as the meanest of the zodiac signs, because when I look at Virgo, Virgo is often very service-oriented, and being a mutable sign, they're often very amenable, very adaptable to things. They generally can often go out of their way to be very tactful, and really they're often very self-effacing. I mean, Virgo actually would deserve effusive praise for being self-effacing, and they are the ones that are often very shy, very reticent. They're not ones to want to go around and look for any problems with people if they can help it. They often are about being very scrupulous and doing the proper thing. So it would be I'd have a hard time saying that Virgo would be the meanest of the zodiac signs. Now, going to Libra. Well, Libra is certainly one where I wouldn't put them as the meanest of the zodiacs, and they have a hard time doing it because they, like Virgo, they could be very tactful and diplomatic. Libra often goes out of their way for peace, harmony, and tranquility. They often are very averse to discord and strife, and don't like dissension or any combative situations. They would rather resolve things peacefully. Now, Libra can often they will fight at times, though, as far as justice goes, because of course they could abhor injustice. But I'd have a hard time seeing Libra as being the meanest of the zodiac signs. So I would say no as far as Libra goes. Now going to Scorpio. Well, Scorpio certainly can be a viable candidate for being the meanest of the zodiac signs, because Scorpio can really, they are ruled by Mars and Pluto, and Mars could be acerbic energy, but Pluto can add a little bit of that vengeance to it. See, the thing about difference like with Scorpio and Aries is, Scorpio can get really, Aries could get irritated, but they often will forgive and forget. But Scorpio, not so much. And it's also, I believe, unequivocally the most vengeful of the signs. Scorpio will often hold a grudge, I believe, longer than any of the other zodiac signs average. Don't get me wrong, they have good qualities and attributes like all the other signs. They could be very passionate. They're very, they could have a lot of compassion for others, the people that are in their tight circle of friends and acquaintances or what have you. They often don't allow a lot of people into their lives because they are often very guarded. But I'll let you know at the end of the video whether I think it's Scorpio or not. Now going to Sagittarius. Well, Sagittarius, I'd have a hard time saying they would be the meanest of the zodiac signs, because Sagittarius is often, very benevolent, philanthropic. They are ones that have a lot of expansive and jocular energy. They try to see, bring up positive qualities or see the positive qualities in other people. They really, they are very adventurous. They often don't hang around areas long enough or people long enough to develop any great animosity toward them where they would wind up expressing any really strong meanness at that person. So it's really hard for me to say that Sagittarius is, it would be the meanest of the signs, given their general jovial and happy-go-lucky nature. So anyway, going to Capricorn. Well, Capricorn can be a viable candidate for this, because Capricorn can really, when they're trying to attain their career ambitions, they could sometimes be downright ruthless in attempting to attain them. But that's really more as far as their career goes. Capricorn generally is a very stern and serious disposition, and they're not but they're not ones that, they're so engrossed often in their own career aspirations and trying to attain their goals or whatever. They don't really have that time to go around trying to be mean being mean to somebody. They're not ones that are often about that. Their meanness will be expressed often, though, I think, as far as business competitors go, or people that they think that might pose a threat to them in terms of competition, and in terms of whether it might be, it might be their business, or as far as like some notoriety or local publicity, maybe, or what have you. So those are that is. But other than that, they're not really ones that are about meanness. They could be very cold and sometimes very callous and even undemonstrative, I think. But as far as just being mean, I don't think they would be the meanest of the zodiac signs. So anyway, I'm going to go to Aquarius now. Well, Aquarius, I'd have a hard time putting them as the meanest of the zodiac signs. Aquarius is often very selfless, very humanitarian in their nature, and they often exude a lot of friendliness. They really are. I do see them as having like the universal friend syndrome. Now, don't get me wrong; they're a fixed sign. They could be very, what I call, immutable. They are very progressive, and they can often be accepting of some others' opinions and their ideas towards something, but they are often very fixed in their own beliefs. Again, it's a sign, I think it's the most paradoxical of all the zodiac signs, but it's a sign that's very humane, very friendly, and they're about making friends more so than anything. And when you're making friends, you're generally not directing mean energy at them, at people. So I would say that Aquarius would not be the meanest of the zodiac signs. Now, going to Pisces. Well, Pisces is a sign that it'd be very altruistic, very compassionate, and they are ones that, they understand about sensitivity, and may be the most sensitive of the zodiac signs. They really they are a sign that you don't really, they're very philanthropic. They're not a sign that is really, they're so well-meaning. I would not see them as the meanest of the zodiac signs. Now, Pisces, in a negative manifestation, yes, they could be very duplicitous and deceptive and be really two-faced and go completely the other way on somebody very quickly, like what's referred to is like schizophrenic behavior, not literally having schizophrenia, but what I mean is very contradictory dual behavior. Now, but the thing is, I don't think they're the ones that would be considered the meanest of the zodiac signs. They often are about their isolation and their solitude and seclusion, and they're often not around people enough to really exhibit a lot of meanness anyway. So, but the sign I want to get to, I'm going to tell you what I think, and I'm going to reveal about what I think the meanest zodiac sign is. I would go with Scorpio. As I stated before, they get the nod over Aries because Scorpio has Pluto in that mix. Aries is ruled by Mars, so they have some acerbic and acrimonious energy connected with them. But Scorpio with the Pluto, I think it could give a little power to that energy, but it's also vengeful anger. You have that Pluto and Mars mix, I call very vengeful, vindictive anger with them. And they, what Scorpio, the thing about them is the main difference between, there's a lot of differences between all signs, but one of the main differences, like say in this example between Aries and Scorpio, is that Aries, they're not ones to harbor grudges or, being vindictive or vengeful. They can get angry quick, but they often will forgive and forget quickly. But Scorpio, when they get angry, they often will hold on to that grudge for a while, be very vindictive, vengeful, and they can express malicious behavior because of that, because wanting to get even, because of the spiteful energy. Scorpio, in some cases, really in negative manifestation, could be very mischievous as well. And sometimes even I've had experience with people that have had some strong Scorpio influences in their chart, whether Scorpio rising or what have you, Scorpio dominant in their chart, and they will express, something, where they will exhibit meanness at times towards somebody that might have not even done anything to them, because it's just for the simple fact of doing it. And I'm not stereotyping Scorpios by any means, people, but at the same time, I do believe they are the ones that are the meanest on average. So that is what I believe as far as my, as far as my own theory and opinion on what the meanest zodiac sign is. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. And until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying, stay well.